Welcome to Transitions. I'm Antoinette Zloty. Today on Transitions, we have with us actually two ladies, Norma Kirkby to my extreme right. Norma is a program director with the Alzheimer's Society of Manitoba. And we have Marilyn Davis, and Marilyn is a caregiver who has caregived for her husband and also for her mother. Now, what we'll do today is we will talk about some of the services that the Alzheimer's Society provide to caregivers, but we'll also have Marilyn share her story with us about caregiving, first for her mother and then for her husband. Throughout Canada, there are many patient safety and Alzheimer's Society organizations that are helping individuals who are caregivers. Transitioning for some people can be very smooth, and in other cases, not quite as smooth. And a lot of it depends on the kind of supports that individuals get. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to turn it over firstly to Norma. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the Alzheimer's Society and the kind of supports that they provide to individuals who actually are caregivers.
Well, the Alzheimer Society is really pleased to be able to reach out to those that are providing care to a person with Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia. We know that for people living with dementia, that there are typically a minimum of 2 individuals that assist with their care. There may be more at different points in their lives, but if we were to look across situations in general, they say there are always a minimum of 2 that assist. The thing that we know is that many people, when they come to caregiving for someone with any acute or chronic illness, come not having known all about that illness before. And so we at the Society are really, really pleased to be able to provide all sorts of information about the disease, about caregiving techniques, about system navigation, because again, lots of times the person's never interacted with the health system. And in the case of Alzheimer's disease, because a person may live anywhere from 2 or 3 to 10 to 12 years beyond the time of their diagnosis, their caregiving journey is going to be extensive and go through many progressions, many changes, many needs for different support. So, Marilyn, could you share with us your first encounter with the healthcare system, and also actually the transition that you went through with your mom, I understand?
It was probably over 20 years ago that I realized that there was something wrong with my mom and didn't know how to fit it all together, and I just kept looking at signs and talking to some friends, and then realized that she definitely would have some kind of dementia. Had a bad car accident, and the diagnosis was almost confirmed, and then I actually contacted the Alzheimer Society, which I didn't know even existed, and ended up going to a caregiving group, which saved my life and helped my mom.
Were you an only child?
My brother lived out of town at the time, so I was the only one here along with my husband and my son, but it was finding out, researching all the information that I needed to know, because I knew nothing. And if it hadn't been for the Alzheimer's Society, I don't know where I would have been. And then I could navigate, as I learned through the caregiving group, I could navigate the healthcare system, access the home care and other resources that we needed to make sure my mom was safe in her home.
I see. So did you find that you had to give up and make some changes in your social life? And
I didn't have a life. I worked at the time, and that was almost a respite for me, because for 6 to 8 hours I'd be there, but it was the constant calls from my mom and it's raining outside, and what do I do? Well, sometimes I had to leave work, but it was basically me that had to step up and do it all.
So did you meet Norma back then, or was
Actually,
that later
it
on?
was at the time when Marilyn's husband
Oh, I see.
started to exhibit some of the signs of dementia
Sure.
that Marilyn and I
Yeah.
first met.
Met?
And we've been involved in assisting with information as she's faced the second journey of caring.
Yep.
So
Can you tell a
him?
little more about that?
About that? Yeah.
With my husband, it was both our second marriage, and I found that I had just retired, and it was a 24/7 all the time process. With my mom, because I worked, it was intermittently, with caregiving, that's nurse or home care workers.
care, yeah.
So with my husband, I found it much more intense, and the type of dementia that Dave has was very rapid in moving along, and my mother's was not. And things that I could put in place for a month or two with my mom, I couldn't with Dave. It was a constant daily change, and changing my techniques and stuff like that. So when he was diagnosed, I accessed home care almost immediately.
Almost. So your son, did he play a role also in helping to support? Because I know with caregivers, oftentimes, appointments are during the day. If you have to work, you have to rely on maybe friends or other relatives, because the system doesn't really provide for getting people to appointments, right?
No.
Yeah.
With my husband, it was totally myself. My son helped on weekends. He would take Dave out for half a day, and they'd go to hardware stores and shop around, and it just gave me a break. And that's the way it was. With my mom, my son at the time did lawn service, so he was checking on her every week.
I see.
So it was sort of an added bonus at the time.
At the time, eh?
Yeah.
So if you had to go back and change things, what do you think would have been really more helpful for you, or?
Well, in the very beginning, having the knowledge of the disease, but back then Alzheimer's was just a word out there. Dementia was known, but not Alzheimer's. So if I had been able to access information more quickly, but with the Alzheimer Society I could, because I had friends that were already involved with the society, and they showed me the direction to go in. So I don't know if there was any other way I could have gone without their help.
Well, it's really nice that you are sharing your story here with us today. And I was wondering, are you still looking after your husband at home, or is he placed in an alternate care facility at this time?
He's in personal care home and has been there for 5.5 years. But I take a large part in being part of the team that is at the nursing home, because they can't speak for themselves, but they're still there. They're still in their being, they're deep inside, they're still the person that you loved. And so I'm his advocate. So I don't go every day, but I press the director of care and for their learning about the process of Alzheimer's and how they can help others, as well as my husband.
That's excellent. That's really, really good. So if you were to give some advice, then it sounds like you're talking about that people really should become more aware, more familiar with the services and with the disease process itself. I know the Alzheimer's Society, during the month of January every year, is Alzheimer's a month. And then every March, I believe, there's a conference, so lay people can go to that conference.
We really work to inform the public on a continuing basis
Basis.
about the warning signs of the disease, because it's really important that whether you think it's going to cross your path or not, that you know what the warning signs are, so if something starts to change in a person that you care for, that you can go, oh, that's significant, I should tell the doctor. So we really try and do that public awareness. But then for families who are living the Alzheimer journey, we do a really robust kind of service. We provide monthly education here in the city. We have a caregiver conference in the fall. We work with professionals because we recognize that for most individuals there will be a time that either they use home care or a personal care home, and the professional caregivers need to be informed about what's new and emerging in knowledge about the disease. So we do those things as well as a monthly e-newsletter. And then there's all the phone work we do. We're constantly responding to people who phone and say, what do I do today? This is happening.
Well, you know, I think that the transition of caregivers to that sort of loving, caring people who can actually reach out and get other people part of that care team as well, and be receptive to people who might be working with the Alzheimer's Society or other organizations. I think that's great, because the transition can't be that easy for the individual either. And so I applaud you for what you've done and what you continue to do. I applaud the Alzheimer's Society and any other organization out there that's helping caregivers to actually make a difference in the lives of individuals who themselves have had to transition. So if there was one last thing that you'd like to say before we end there, Marilyn, what would you tell?
To say to caregivers, take care of yourself.
Thank you. That is excellent. I really appreciate that. I can see that totally, that is really good advice.
Yeah.
And so thank you, Norma, for coming in. Thanks, Marilyn. And I really appreciate you being here and speaking with you today. Thank you. We will see you again at our next show. I hope that you'll find our topics interesting and informative. Please visit the websites that we've posted for you.